Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the Well Live Sunday Experience.
My name is Alyssa.
And I'm Josh, and it is our pleasure to be your host this morning. Thank you for inviting us into your living room today.
That's a little creepy.
Point taken. Apologies, everyone.
Anyway, it's great to be here with you this morning. To give people time to sign on and find the live feed, we're going to do a little 4th of July trivia
Sunday,
since that's
Sunday.
coming up this week.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe it's already July?
I really can't. Time, it just flies when you're in quarantine, doesn't it? False. It does not.
Not at all. All right, so for our first question,
Mm.
how much do you think Americans spent on consumer purchased fireworks in 2018? We're going to give you 3 options, and we want you to type your answers. So A is $525 million, B is $945 million, and C is $1.5 billion. So type those answers, A, B, or C, in the comments, and we're going to take a look here and see if anyone is actually guessing. Come on, guys.
Yep.
We see you. Make your guesses.
I see Steve Meyer. I see Krista Martin. I don't see guesses yet.
We're seeing who's joining us, too. So
we got to see.
we got
Twan, well done. Way to lead the pack.
We got Jocelyn Espinal joining us this morning.
Morning, Travis and Jonathan Taylor. Welcome, guys.
We got Christy. We got Claire, who has some super exciting news that their family got a dog this week. That
Puppy.
is super exciting.
What? It's pretty sweet. Oh, okay, we got a variety here. Chrissy says B. We got a few B's. Lydia's going with C. Scott's going big. Or going
Scott's
home.
going with the
1.5
billion.
bill.
Should probably figure out what the actual answer is, huh?
Chris says too much. That's probably accurate. 'Cause
Either
all
way.
of those is too much.
Either
All right,
way.
drum roll for the answer. The answer was B. So good job for those of you that
Wow.
wrote B.
945 million.
Yeah.
That is money well spent.
Not well spent at all.
Okay. If you're just joining us, guys, we are doing some 4th of July trivia while we wait for all of our friends to join us. So on to question number 2, which addresses America's sweetheart, the hot dog. So the question is, how many hot dogs do Americans consume each year while celebrating Independence Day? Okay, A, $150 million. Wait, was it? How many? 150 million hot dogs. B, 475 million. Or C, 1.2 billion.
How many hot dogs, Andy?
How many hot dogs?
On the 4th of July.
Yes.
So not
Yes.
like just
Now-
all year.
For those fact checkers out there, this figure is according to the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, which I think we can all agree is a pretty well-respected institution. So I
Definitely.
would trust these numbers.
Definitely would trust these numbers.
Okay, what do we got people
All
saying
right,
here?
what do we got here? We got Mike Robbins
All right.
says B.
All right, B. Let me see here.
Gotta give people
a
a
little
minute.
Chris Brady once again.
We
too
got a
many.
C. We
All
got
right.
we got A.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Got it.
So the answer is 150 million.
So that was A.
A. Just for your information, that number of hot dogs can stretch from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles more than 5 times.
Yeah, you think it's not a lot because it was the lowest answer, but that's a lot. That's
If
a
you
lot
were
of hot
still
dogs.
going to work, you could talk about that around the water cooler, but
Yeah.
quarantine. Okay.
All right, so speaking of hot
One more.
dogs, we thought
Yes.
we'd go with the hot dog theme. Every year on the 4th of July, there is a hot dog eating contest. I was not aware of this, but it's true. Trust us, if you Google it, you will be sucked into a black hole and will not be able to look away.
It
Don't
happened
do it
in our
unless
home.
you want to ruin hot dogs for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
The question is, what is the record for the number of hot dogs eaten in 10 minutes? So in 10
Okay.
minutes, how many hot dogs did this one person eat
Yes.
as the record? So A is 43,
Okay.
B
Respectable.
57, and C 74. That includes hot dogs and buns and possibly condiments,
Yes. The unit was HDB.
which was
Hot
dogs.
dogs and buns. Just so you know, again, very technical. So let's
right,
see what
type
we
your
got
answers.
here. Let me see.
I don't.
Steve Meyer said Joey Chestnut. Well, that actually is the person.
That's the person,
But
but
that-
how many?
yes.
What is the record?
How many?
What is Joey Chestnut's record?
Mike is thinking it was 74. Steve, who got the name
Janessa
right,
says
said
C.
57. Okay.
Vanessa Martin.
All right, we got
got a
another.
few here.
Okay, people thinking big. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Those people who were thinking big, you are right.
yes.
It was C, 74 hot dogs. Oh my.
10 minutes.
Not
So-
only that, but the champion, who was Joey Chestnut, he has won the contest 12 times.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
That's
crazy.
more than one every 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Yeah, pretty gross.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Slow clap, everyone, for Joey Chestnut. That's why I'm proud to be an American. But you know, personally, I feel like that record could still be broken. So kids, keep on dreaming. Anyway,
No.
In all seriousness, all that stuff aside, we're so glad you're all joining us this morning. We are excited to hear what God has to speak to us through Pastor Scott and Charity this morning. Today, they're going to be talking about resetting our family life as we continue working our way through the book of Colossians.
So this is your first time joining The Well. We're a church in Nashua, New Hampshire that cares deeply about our city and about helping our friends and neighbors know and follow Jesus. So no matter where you are in your journey of faith, if you're a committed follower of Jesus or you're just curious about who he is, you're welcome with us here.
Absolutely. And we encourage you to share this message on Facebook and engage with the comment section. All thoughts and questions are welcome. We really do want to hear from you all. So now I want to take a moment to ask you a question. Just pause, look deep inside and ask yourself, have I filled out the digital connection card lately? If not, now is your chance. Share prayer requests, any needs you might have, or take next steps with us. This is both for new guests and those who call The Well their church family. If you're new to us, we have a gift we'd love to send your way. Spoiler alert, it has to do with ice cream.
If you're looking to get more involved with The Well as a next step, you can learn about different opportunities through the website or our newsletter or by viewing the links that will be in the comment section.
Awesome. We're just a couple goofballs here, but we are so glad that you're here with us. Enjoy the Well online experience. And for now, enjoy the message from Pastor Scott and Charity.
Well, welcome everybody. We're really excited that you're with us again today. My name is Pastor Scott Kearney. This is my wife Charity, who's going to be joining us today as we continue through our series Reset. Wherever you are watching, whether you're local or maybe you're watching around the country or maybe even global, we're really glad that you're with us today, and we want you to know that you belong. Even if you don't even believe, we want you to know that you belong. And here's what we want you to do. We want you to see yourself as an active participant in this. We want you to join our church family today, not just be a passive observer, but an active participant. Here's a couple ways you can do that. You can like this video. You can subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook. You can even invite a friend to a watch party, because we want as many people to find hope and a message of hope as possible in this season, because we need it pretty desperately. So, and you have my permission as the pastor of the church to go ahead and talk in the middle of church, okay? Like, go ahead and comment, and the more we comment, the more people are going to find out about this. So we're really glad you're with us today. Join us, and let's have some fun as we continue to push the reset button on life. So this has been kind of a wild ride for us in quarantine with family and everything, right?
It really has, and it's funny because as you reflect on your own quarantine experience since when COVID-19 all went down, and was it early March? It's been a while now. Whether it's the new homeschooling, working from home, having your schedules flipped upside down, habits of eating out and seeing friends totally gone. I mean, are you surprised by the things that you actually really love about this season? Are there things that have happened or habits that have been formed that you actually don't want to change? I think for us, I'm guessing it was about 3 weeks in, we started to realize that there were some things that we really enjoyed about this season that we didn't want to give up. I know for us, I mean, we've really enjoyed just slowing down. Anybody else feel that way? We had several nights a week in our normal where the kids might stay up past their bedtime, and that was stressful, getting 4 little ones in the van and home late. Even just Scott's schedule, I love that he works from home now. I just do. That probably doesn't work well for everybody else, but we get lunch together every day. I just feel like we're more bonded as a family. And really, even the remote learning hasn't been so bad. I don't miss rushing out the door in the morning. While there are some hiccups to it, honestly, it's great to be side by side with our firstborn, who just finished first grade, and to see her learn and how she learns, and for me to grow as a parent has been pretty cool. So there are some things that I don't want to change.
Yeah, I think it's okay to be honest about that because, like we've said, we believe that the disruption of this season is actually an opportunity for us to push the reset button.
Right.
And if there's some things that we're really loving about this season, why not carry them into the next one? There's nothing stopping you from that. So now we came across an article early on in this season where the title said, "Mommy, I like the coronavirus. I hope it doesn't end." Now, that is nothing about the atrocities that legitimately have happened all over the world, and maybe you're still grieving
Right.
incredible losses. But what it was articulating was families are spending more time together. For good or bad, families are spending more time together, and I think some kids are leaning into that and saying, I'm getting more of mom, I'm getting more of dad. I'm not sure I want that to end. And so we're going to ask the question today, how can we use this disruption of a season as an opportunity to push the reset button on family? What would that look like? And so for us, I mean, some of the things that we've thought about in just pushing that reset button, again, are meals. Like, and maybe this is for you, like you're
Right.
sharing more meals together. You're spending more time around the dinner table, the breakfast table, the lunch table. Instead of just rushing all over the place, you're actually spending more time together around that and learning. Like you're actually more involved in your kids' learning. Instead of just handing that off to other people, right? You're engaged now. You understand a little bit more about your kid.
Right, definitely. And then just knowing more about them in the process, what they're interested in, what they struggle with, all of that. And surprisingly, too, just being more creative as a family. I know a popular phrase is think outside the box, but what if you're forced to think inside the box? You have your home, your yard, your immediate neighborhood, the toys that you have, the activities that you have in your house. How can you get creative with what you have? And I think that there's really been a freedom in that, not always wanting more, wanting busier, wanting hurried, but slowing down, being grateful, and thinking inside the box.
Yeah, because we realize home life has been a total bliss for everybody. It's just been so peaceful and awesome. I mean,
Not always.
I mean, look, if you're anything like us, like we have our glowing moments, right? But then you also have these moments where you feel like a Tasmanian devil just ran through your whole house and
Oh,
everyone's
Lord.
screaming all at once. Look, we get how challenging family can be, and the emotions are raw in this moment for both adults and kids. It's all
Yeah.
over the place. But again, we believe this is a great opportunity to push the reset button on family life and get back to what's most important. So we're going to continue through Paul's letter to the Colossian church that was written thousands of years ago, really as a reset button for them to help them understand what is most important about life, about faith, about their new relationship with Jesus. And so today we're going to find out just, again, 2 quick verses that he has on family. So we're going to begin in Colossians 3, verse 20. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. And fathers, do not bitter your children, or they will become discouraged. Just a few sentences here, but there's a lot in this. And as we think about pushing the reset button on family, here's the first invitation that Paul's going to give us. He's going to invite us to replace, and this is from a parent perspective here, but to replace control with encouragement. Replace control with encouragement. Paul, the second part of this here, he says, fathers, don't embitter your kids. And he's realizing that it's a very real possibility for parents to parent in such a way that actually leaves your kids more frustrated, maybe more hurt, more angry than not. Now, it's so interesting when we think about the context of when this was written. This was written back in the first century in a very patriarchal culture, which is probably why Paul singled out fathers. But in our 21st century, we could easily say mom and dads in this one. But in the first century, it was not uncommon for this perspective to take place where dads kind of saw their kids as property. They were kind of extensions of their life, and they could do whatever they wanted. And I read one commentator put it this way. In ancient times, fathers literally owned their kids. They were their property. They could do anything they wanted. They could even kill them. Therefore, in the old household codes of the pagans, they would say, fathers, take charge, show them who's boss, take over, be a disciplinarian, let them know their place, right? Control. Paul says, not so much. Man, when the good news of Jesus comes in, that is not how I want your parenting to be marked by. I want it to be marked by something so much bigger than that. I don't want you to embitter your kids. And so we thought about it. And as we process through this, there's really there's 2 ways that you can be excessive, in your parenting that can leave your kids embittered and discouraged. One of them is excessive discipline,
Right.
and the other one is under discipline. The excessive discipline. This comes from like the controlling parents, control hungry parents. That really their parenting is marked by unreasonably harsh demands, abuse of authority, arbitrariness in their rules that applies in some moments but not in others, unfairness, constant nagging, demeaning, shaming. And for some of you, man, that's the environment that you grew up in. You do that long enough, and it's going to leave your kid incredibly discouraged. But the same could be said about the under-discipline, right? If we just kind of tune out, we just give our kids whatever they want, right? Like, they're going to hate us for that too, because they're crying out for discipline. Really what they're doing is they're asking for us to know them, to be engaged, and to encourage them in the life that Jesus has for them. And excessive discipline or under-discipline is going to lead them away. We thought about this, like, how much are we experiencing this in this season, right? Our tendency when we've lost control in the pandemic, and when we just kind of want to numb from the pain of it. I mean, how easy is it for us to either express it in over control or under control, kind of checking out?
Man, I think that's just where being a parent is so humbling, because we can't tap in like a work environment and then leave. Our kids are with us all the time, and they see us at our best and our worst. And so this is where we can be sorrowful for all of those moments. I know, at least for us, where we are harsh, but also moments where we just want to give up and ignore and let them do what we want, simply because we're human and we're sinful, and we can be selfish, and we can turn the stressors of this season, especially when they're not dealt with in a healthy way on our end, they come out on our kids, and that breaks our hearts when we don't do this right. That's for sure. And when we're surrounded by other parents or other circles, we can talk all day long about our kids' behavior. The days that they did really well, the days that they're driving us crazy. But you know what? If I'm really honest, my best days as a mom actually have nothing to do with my kids' behavior at all. It has everything to do with my own heart being in a good place that day. It's on me as a parent.
Yep.
It's not on them. If my heart is preoccupied or anxious or otherwise wrapped up in anything else other than Jesus, then chances are I'm going to pivot to one of those extremes, either being harsh or just ignoring them, not doing my job well.
Yeah, and a pandemic will draw all of this out. Again, our default is going to be selfish, and to either try to get back the control that we want, or to check out and just kind of let YouTube parent our kids. But the gospel tells us something different. The gospel says, man, we got to start with ourselves here, and we got to change what's going on the inside of us, and then we got to lead it. Let it lead us to encouragement, And I think that sense of control, whether we're controlling by numbing or controlling by trying to focus our kids on, like, hey, you better get all that homeschool done. You better clean your room exactly how I want it. I'm trying to work here, so leave me alone. Like, man, we can be so controlling or so checked out. And the gospel's inviting us to a third way there. We've got to be encouraging, because they're feeling it like we are. Adults, your kids are feeling this pandemic like we are, and we've got to encourage them. We've got to encourage them.
And, let's be bold. Can we just be bold? Even you and me, Scott, like, let's be bold and take the painful route of some self-analysis here. We can ask the Lord, as hard as it might sound, to reveal some of those blind spots that we have as parents, and trust that He's for us and He's for our growth. It reminds me actually of 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10, that talks about godly sorrow, and that's okay. We shouldn't avoid feeling sorrowful. It says, for the kind of sorrow God wants us to experience leads us away from sin and results in salvation. There's no regret for that kind of sorrow. But worldly sorrow, which lacks repentance, results in spiritual death. So this kind of repentance and turning around maybe some ways we're failing as parents in this season shouldn't leave us to that point of feeling dead. It should actually revive us. It leads to salvation and growth. God's for you. And we put so much pressure on ourselves every single day to be good parents. But man, what if we led instead out of the kind of love and the kind of grace that Jesus has given us? And if we are filled with that, we can so much easier give that to our kids.
That's so good. So here's the second thing here. We realize that we could easily gravitate towards, well, let's just nurture our kids and let's just fuel them and make them feel really loved and cared for in the season, give them a ton of grace, and we need to. We can't control, we can't check out, we've got to encourage them. But that encouragement also extends itself into another invitation for us. And this is where we got to up our game as parents again. Here's the second invitation here. Paul's inviting us as we push the reset button on our family life to be your kid's primary spiritual instructor. Be your kid's primary spiritual instructor. And, you know, I think this is a great opportunity in this season where we're forced to spend a lot more time together. You're forced to educate your kids. It's a great opportunity to not just hand off the education and the most amount of influence on your kids to someone else.
Right.
You know, don't just hand it off to church. Don't just hand it off to school, man. See yourself as the primary influencer in your life, the primary spiritual instructor. Now we don't, you know, we don't like the word obey. when Paul says, children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Like, I think we as Americans, like, our natural gravitational pull is not obedience. It's probably rebellion, right? It's written into the DNA for us as Americans, right? And so when we think about obeying instructors, like, that doesn't come naturally to us. I mean, think about it. Our country was built on rebellion. Right before we became our own nation, we wrote the Declaration of Independence, right? I mean, that is that's a document marked in rebellion. And it began with the Boston Tea Party, right? Like, man, the English sent all sorts of tea. What are we going to do? We're going to rebel by pouring it into the Boston Harbor. Like, I mean, and it extends itself into the skepticism that we have towards all institutions, towards all authority, and even our skepticism towards organized religion right now. We are a skeptical people. We are built on rebellion. We don't like obedience. We just don't like obedience. But here's why it's so important, parents, to help your kids lean into obedience. Here's why this is important. If we don't show them what it's like to submit and to obey to godly leadership that cares for them, how willing are they going to be to lean into God? Because God's the one who has all control over the universe. He loves us, but he's got authority. And Jesus isn't just here to kind of put an arm around us and cuddle us. He's inviting us to change our life. And we've got to submit to his authority. And so, parents, we have an incredible invitation to help them, to instruct them, to help them understand what submitting to godly authority looks like. And for a lot of us, we've bought into this cultural idea that we shouldn't just we can't impress our values and our beliefs on our kids. Let's just nurture them, and, you know, let's let them figure it out on their own. But here's what one commentator said about it. He said we've got to be able to teach our kids right and wrong based on what we really believe is right and wrong. And he says if kids grow up with the notion that nothing matters in life, that it doesn't matter whatever you want to be or whatever you want to do, we're just going to encourage you in that. If they grow up with the notion that nothing matters in life, that's really moral cowardice on our end. The refusal to ask our children to believe as we believe, to live as we live, and to act as we act is really a betrayal that comes from moral cowardice. Why? It's because in that moment, we're teaching them that it really doesn't matter. Life doesn't matter. Your choices don't matter. They do. They do. You got to see yourself as a primary spiritual instructor. And gosh, I mean, we all mess up. We're not going to be perfect parents. That's okay. But even if they learned from you 50 to 80% of what they're going to take away in life, like, I think what you teach them when you teach them to follow you and to believe as you believe, you teach them your choices matter, your beliefs matter. And we've got to raise our kids as the primary spiritual educator that way.
Definitely. You know, and it really kind of showed itself, myself included, when the school year abruptly ended in March, because it was a little freaky. I mean, I have a first grader. I know a lot of people have kids in middle school, high school, everywhere in between. But when the school year ended halfway in, I was a little nervous that they would fall behind at school level. They wouldn't catch up on their reading or their math. I was somehow insufficient to teach them those things. But doesn't that kind of reveal some of our priorities? Am I so much more concerned about her having her quick 10 facts in 30 seconds or less? Or is this an amazing opportunity to teach her more about being flexible, about crisis, about suffering, about redemption, about learning how to pitch in more at home? There are so many other lessons that can be taken from this, and not just the academics.
That's so good. You know, if you're like me, you can feel inadequate sometimes when it comes to influencing your kids. Like,
By sometimes he means most of the time.
all right, like,
Yeah.
I mean, you try to teach them the right thing, right? You know, you like, hey, go love someone, and then they just turn around and just whap their sister in the face, you know? like, I mean, sometimes we can feel so inadequate, like what we're trying to tell them is not connecting. I tell you what, I had a moment the other day. I'm pushing Eden, our oldest, on the swing, and in the middle of this, I mean, just to give you a window, kids are feeling this like we are. She leaned in and she said, Daddy, with all the evil that's happening with the coronavirus, how do we know God's real? It's coming from a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, what parent's ready to answer that question in that moment? I mean, I'm used to, we've got an environment called the problem of God where we tackle some of these biggest questions like the problem of evil and suffering and, you know, exclusivity of Jesus, the problem of the Bible. Like we talk about that, but I'm ready to do that with college age and above. I don't know how to do that with a 7-year-old. And so here I am trying to be like, well, how do you know the world is beautiful? Or how do you know right and wrong apart from God? And my girl just kind of gave me this look like, nice try, Dad. You know, C-, you know, like, and I felt like it was like #fail moment right there. But then just a few days later, you know, as I'm thinking, I'm a pastor, I got a pastor's daughter who's like thinking more atheist than believer at this moment. Just a couple days later,
She's thinking honest, and I love that.
she is. No,
It's
and we
very
love
cool.
that. You know, and great point. I mean, we want you. Maybe you don't believe, and we have an environment in our church where it's okay to ask all sorts of questions. It's okay to doubt. But just a couple days later, Eden comes back to me, and Charity, this is on Sunday morning, and just as I'm gearing up to do one of these, and she's out of her mind excited. And she says, Mommy and Daddy, guess what? You know, I started a Bible study with my neighborhood friends, and they want to read the Bible with me, and I just helped them pray their first prayer. They want to trust Jesus. I told them about Easter, told them about Christmas, and we even talked about being baptized. And they said, we love this. Can we do this every week? Isn't that awesome, Mommy and Daddy? And I'm sitting there like my mouth's open on the floor, and I'm like, way to go, kid. Just like we taught you, kind of. And I'm like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
You know?
it is.
So like, don't think for a second that the attempts that you have to influence your kid towards Jesus aren't working.
Right.
It may be sinking in a lot deeper than you think, and your kids might surprise you at what God does in their life.
Yeah. Kids are sponges. You just never know what is sinking in. And, you know, but put in your effort. Even if some days it feels like a C effort, it's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And to have scripture that you say, to pray over meals, to have a safe environment for kids to say those things, even if you don't have an answer. Man, the power, even coming from a parent, of saying, you know, hon, I'm not sure. That's hard. Or that's a mystery of God that I just don't quite know how to answer yet. I hope that as you grow up, we can keep talking about this together. That's going to hold so much power over them that they can enter a church environment, a spiritual environment, not feeling shame or guilt because they have doubts.
Yeah.
Let's let our kids doubt.
Yep.
This is a crazy season for them too. Allow them to have the grace to talk with them about things like that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And journey with them in it. You know, this is, again, a great opportunity for us to invest in our kids like never before. We don't even know what the fall is going to look like if we go back to school or not. But, man, I encourage you, take this season for what it is. Spend time in the Bible, in a kid's Bible together, in the adult Bible. Pray together, worship together. We got these awesome Orange Curriculum Kids videos that we crank out every week. Man, watch those together as a family. It's so much fun. We got dance moves, and I'm not even a dancer, okay? We're having so much fun in these videos, and I'm telling you, it's sinking in. It's sinking in more than you think it is. Well, here's the third thing that we just wanted to invite you to. We talked about reset the family, but some of you, man, you don't have kids right now. You might not even be married. Like, you know, maybe you're single and you're thinking, man, well, how does this apply to me? We talked about marriage last week, and now we're talking about family. Should I just check out? Well, no, I mean, Paul gives a specific instruction for kids in this, right? Whether you have kids or not, we all know what it's like to be a kid, right? Yeah. And if you're a kid inside your parents' home, you know, in grade school or younger, or high school and younger, or whether you're a grown-up kid, man, we've got an invitation here. You know, and Paul says, you know, kids, obey your parents in everything. Well, what does that mean for us? What does that mean? Well, here's the third invitation. We want to invite you to always choose honor over your rights. To always choose honor over your rights. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, in kind of a sistered letter that Paul wrote back a couple thousand years ago to a group in Ephesus. He wrote a letter with the exact same instructions in chapter 6 to kids, saying, kids, obey your parents. But he qualified it by saying, children, obey your parents. And then he quoted from the Ten Commandments, which was honor your father and mother. Now, honor is a little different than strict obedience in everything. Honor doesn't mean that you have to follow exactly as your parents do or, imitate their lifestyle. Because, I mean, let's face it. For some of us, we grew up in an environment that we don't want to replicate, with parents who maybe let us down and disappointed us, or maybe abused us and hurt us. I know plenty in our church family who've experienced that. We've got examples. So, what does it look like for us to honor our parents? Well, this is just a couple things here. To honor means to treat them with dignity and respect, regardless of their choices and regardless of what they have done and what they're currently doing. And we can thank our parents for something. For some of us, we've got a lot to thank, and I've got incredible parents that I could not be more grateful for. But there's something that you can thank them for. Mm-hmm. Be grateful for that. Forgive them for their past mistakes and their sins, because we all need it. None of us are perfect. We say no perfect people loud. We've got to forgive them and unconditionally love them. And really, what's the alternative? If we don't honor our parents, and if we just kind of leave them and just say, I don't want to deal with them anymore, what's going to happen? Well, if you're raising kids, number one, you're not setting an example for them to honor you when they're grown up in life, but you're also creating a prison of bitterness for your own heart, right? True. And to free yourself and your own conscience from that slavery and that anger towards parents, man, you got to honor them.
That's true.
Honoring is freeing.
Yep. This is a huge topic, the idea of honoring somebody. And this can be true of, honestly, beyond parents, this can be friends, this can be acquaintances, this can be people that you've just met. But this idea of speaking truth or sharing your ideas, even just conflict, with somebody while honoring and respecting them at the same time is a completely lost art in our culture today. We would so much rather throw verbal grenades over social media and completely disregard someone's humanity than honor and respect them with some healthy dialogue, loving dialogue, the eye-to-eye kind, the kind that stops and listens before we speak, the kind that would say things in a way that's respectful and maintains somebody's dignity. That's huge. And this is our chance, I think, in this quarantine season to model this at home. What does that look like? To have respectful dialogue, to enforce that, to do our best that we can, because you know what? This is going to translate to our friends. This is how we should be communicating in our church families too. How can we respectfully share disagreements while also honoring and respecting one another? This is the time to do that. And that is going to be huge in shining that kind of a light in a world that desperately needs it.
Yeah. And here's the power. When we think about each one of these things that we're inviting you to consider today when it comes to resetting your family, why? Why would we do that? Well, here's the reality. Jesus loved us so much that even though he could have walked away on his own and just focused on his rights and his privilege, he came into our world and he sacrificed so that we could become the family of God, so that we could live with him. Man, he didn't just, say, hey, go ahead and you live however you want to, because he knew that would be destructive for us. He educated us spiritually and living the most abundant life and what it means to submit to him, because when we do and when we obey God, man, that's when the greatest life is going to happen. Jesus stepped in on our behalf, and he ultimately paid the greatest price by dying in our place, sacrificing his life so that we, together in the family of God, could have a thriving family, so that we could all be full of life, full of grace, full of encouragement, and lifted to the place where he wants us to go. So here's what we wanted to do. We wanted to invite you guys to worship with us as we reflect on this good news that God has made us family with him today. And we want to sing this song. It's called No Longer Slaves, that our band's going to lead us in. And we just encourage you to reflect that God hasn't made us slaves anymore. Slaves to either numbing out and being distant from our kids, or maybe working too much and being away from our kids, or being controlling and over-controlling. He didn't make us slaves to dishonoring our family members that drive us crazy. He didn't make us slaves anymore to not being a primary educator. Man, Jesus set us free from all of this so that we could live an abundant life. So reflect on this song together as we sing, and let God's truth and his life pour into you as we think about resetting our family together.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into your family, and your blood flows through my veins. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. Oh, I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God. Oh, I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God. And oh, whoa, you split the sea so I could walk right through it, and my fears were drowned in perfect love. And you rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. And you split the sea so I could walk right through it, and my fears were drowned in perfect love. And you rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. Yes, I am. And I am a child of God, full of favor. I am a child of God.
Well, maybe for some of you, as you're listening to this, man, this thought of no longer being a slave to the things that hold us captive and really are not life-giving anymore, you want that. And maybe you're leaning in and you're saying, I recognize now that it's all in Jesus. And we get all of these rich resources because of a relationship with him. I want that. How do I get it? Well, I'm going to lead you in a prayer in just a second here. That's going to be a simple invitation. And it's going to start by confessing that we've fallen short and that we need God. And then just accepting his free gift of salvation, his free gift to begin a relationship and embrace his grace. So if that is you, if you want that, I invite you now to lean in with me as we pray this prayer together. So let's pray. God, I admit that I haven't lived an awesome life. I have failed. God, you know this about me. I've missed the mark. I'm so far from perfect, and I know that it's translated into dysfunction in my family and all sorts of different interactions I have with other people. I get that, God. And I know that I fail to measure up to your standards in that. I need your forgiveness, God. I believe that Jesus is who he said he was, that he's the Son of God, and I believe that he purchased my freedom on the cross when he died in my place. I receive that. I accept that forgiveness. And I just want to say I trust you, and I want to follow you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Guys, if that is your heart, and maybe you did that for the very first time, I'm telling you, there is no greater decision that you could ever make. So here's what we want you to do. We just want you to text the words respond now, to respond to God. Just respond now to 97,000, 97000. And when you do that, man, we're going to start a conversation. We're going to celebrate with you because it's an incredible choice. But we're also going to get you resources to help you take next steps in this journey with Jesus. We could not be more excited for you. For the rest of us today, if you want additional resources on this, you want to take your family life to the next level, I just encourage you, type all in the comment section, just all in, and we're just going to come alongside you as the church family to encourage you, to equip you, and to help you push the reset button on your family life and your relationships like never before. So thanks so much for joining us.
What's coming up next week?
Yeah, so next week we're going to continue our reset series looking at the book of Colossians, and we're going to talk about our work life.
Is that just for people who have full-time jobs, or who's
Absolutely
that
not.
for?
This is, we believe that every one of us have a great calling and a vocation, whether you're actually in a physical job or whether you're a stay-at-home mom.
A student?
A student. God's got to work for all of us to do, and it doesn't mean you have to get paid to do it. And so we're going to understand, man, what is work? And what's our relationship to work, and maybe with our coworkers and with our bosses, and especially in this pandemic season where some of you have been out of work. Some of you have been frustrated with doing work at home. Some of it feels grinding and meaningless. We're going to talk about that and how to push the reset button on our mind when it comes to engaging our work. So tune in with us. In the meantime, subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us, and we'll get you great content all week. Now we're going to hand it back over to our host, who are going to give you a couple of next steps for how to engage with us as a church family this week. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you all again so much for joining us today. We appreciated all the comments in the comment section, just that conversation that was going on throughout the service. I know for me, it was really good to be reminded of a few things. Like, we're not parents, but when Scott and Charity were talking about the importance of humility in parenting, I find for me that just translates into every relationship I have. Like the way of Jesus, you look in the gospel about how he interacted with people, and the way he was calling people to live, it was marked by humility. All these people who came to Jesus being like, can you believe those people? Like, they're terrible. Jesus' response was always like, let's look into your heart and like what you're dealing with. And I feel like that's something that I need to be constantly reminded of, because every day, every morning, I wake up trying to justify how great I am and how worthy I am. And I look back at Jesus and be like, wow, it's only because Jesus is so good that I have anything to offer. And he's calling me into a life of setting that aside so I can like truly love other people. So I feel like in parenting and just friends and neighbors, everybody you meet, like that humility is such a huge deal of what it means to walk with Jesus. What about you, babe?
Yeah, and I was just reminded, just thinking about honoring my parents, like it's the same, it's still relevant, even though I'm not a kid anymore. I think I heard that a lot as a kid, like honor your parents, and to me it meant obeying them, doing what they told me to do, and now it's different. Like I'm an adult now. My parents are adults, and it's a different kind of relationship, but it's still a command for me to honor my parents and just to think about, because they're far away, both of us, our parents live quite a distance away, so how can we honor them in our day-to-day lives even though we don't see them all the time, and how can we honor them by making sure that they still know that they're a priority to us and we still think about them and care for them and want to check in with them. So just trying to regularly call them and arrange visits when we can, and just so that they know we're still honoring them in our day-to-day lives, I think is important. It's something just good for me to be reminded of.
That's such a good reminder. Maybe a challenge for those of you watching for this week, like reach out to your parents, see how they're doing, thank them for something. There's always something we can thank our parents for. So just something for you to think about, maybe challenge yourself with this week. Mom and Dad, love you. Thank you.
Yeah, love you too.
Cross that off the list. But to close us off today, I invite you all to join us in giving generously. Now, you can give online at thewellnh.org/give, where you can give a one-time gift or automate your giving. You can also give via text by texting the $ and amount to 84321.
Yeah, and we also just want to remind you all, we say this every week, but our church is here to support you if this is a more challenging season for you. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need help with groceries or anything. We still have a few Market Basket gift cards, so please let us know if that can be helpful. Or if anything else is helpful, just let us know through the digital connection card.
So we do have plans for a well get-together at Greeley Park from 2 to 4, socially distanced, and that still is planning to happen. We know that there may be some issues with weather, so we're going to keep an eye on that. We should be doing an update about the status of that get-together by noon, so check the Facebook page just to make sure whether it's happening or not. So we're going to keep a hand on the pulse of the weather between now and then.
Great. Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good. If that can happen, that would be fun.
That would be awesome.
Hang out with everyone,
Yeah.
but we'll see. If not this week, then we'll definitely be doing another one sometime soon. So keep updated about that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for joining us today. Have a great week, everybody. We hope to see you soon.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.